been almost 4 years since you've recorded or come out with a new album. How do you feel now that the album is out?
I feel rejuvenated, kind of, because after working on it so long, it's so much work. A lot of people, they're used to just seeing the outcome of work. They never see the side of the work you go through to produce the outcome. And I feel, rejuvenated and happy. It's a jubilation, really, is what it is. It's like a celebration. It's like, we're done.
Michael Jackson is indeed an international favorite for all ages, an incredible force of incredible energy. The art of music, a pace setter for quality of production, a vanguard for high standards of entertainment. What is a genius? What is a living legend? What is a megastar? Michael Jackson, that's all. And just when you think you know him, he gives you more.
The genesis of Michael Jackson's Thriller started with the declaration, "I want to be the biggest and wealthiest star in show business." Michael wasn't going to let anyone or anything keep him for what he perceived to be his destiny, and he kept his word. He'd done what he set out to do, perhaps even more than he'd expected. Thriller was Michael Jackson's first album to top the US Billboard Top LPs and Tapes chart, where it spent a record 37 non-consecutive weeks at number 1 from February 1983 to April 1984. The album produced 7 top 10 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, including Billie Jean and Beat It, both of which hit number 1. After his legendary moonwalk during his Motown 25 performance, the album started selling 1 million copies per week, with sales further increasing after the release of the Thriller music video in December 1983. By the end of 1983, Thriller had sold 32 million copies worldwide, making it the best-selling album of all time. It was the top-selling album of both 1983 and 1984 in the United States, setting new industry standards with its groundbreaking music videos and promotional strategies. The album's success broke racial barriers in music, earning Michael regular airplay on MTV, opening the door for more black artists to be seen on the platform. To this very day, Thriller remains the best-selling album of all time, with an estimated 70 million copies sold worldwide. It has been certified 34 times platinum and won a record 8 Grammy Awards in 1984, including Album of the Year. The album is consistently ranked among the greatest of all time. Michael Jackson was an unapologetic perfectionist, someone who only wanted to climb upwards, never descending and never hitting a plateau. But how do you top the biggest selling album of all time? That would prove to be a question that would frame the rest of his career. His success wouldn't slow down anytime soon, however, but everything he did from this point on would be unfairly compared to Thriller, both by critics and Michael himself. Regardless, he would fight tooth and nail with his next release. His mission was simple: to beat Thriller.
Jackson's victory on Epic Records and Cassettes.
You're looking at a sneak preview of what is perhaps the most controversial rock concert tour in history, the Jackson's Victory Tour, opening tonight in Kansas City.
Listen up. I'd like to say this is our last and final tour. And I think this is our farewell tour. Y'all been wonderful. It's been a long 20 years, and we love you all. Here we go. Shake your body. Shake your body.
November 1983, Michael and his brothers partnered with Pepsi in a $5 million promotional deal, a record-breaking celebrity endorsement at the time. On January 27, 1984, the Jacksons filmed a commercial. During a simulated concert, the pyrotechnics malfunctioned, setting Michael's hair on fire. Despite quick extinguishing of the fire, Michael suffered second and third degree burns, exposing part of his skull. The incident left him with emotional trauma, nightmares, and a fear of fire and pyrotechnics. He had to undergo multiple surgeries for repair, and for the rest of his life, he had to use makeup, wigs, and hats to conceal scars and hair loss. After recovering from the tragic Pepsi incident, Michael and his brothers would reunite for their 15th studio album titled Victory, which was released on July 2, 1984. It was the group's first album since Triumph in 1980 and Michael's first new musical release since Thriller just 2 years prior. Victory was the only album to include all 6 Jackson brothers together as a single group and was the final Jackson's album to feature Michael as the frontman of the group. Despite the reunion, the brothers rarely worked together on the Victory album. It was mainly composed of solo songs the brothers had each worked on during that time. Each brother had a solo song on the album, making it more like a compilation than a full-fledged collaborative effort. The Victory era saw tensions between the Jacksons reach an all-time high. Minimal promotion was done for the album as the brothers often refused to be in each other's presence for a multitude of reasons. Their label was forced to commission a painting for the album cover as the brothers refused to come together for a proper photo shoot. Specifically, the clashing egos of Michael and Jermaine proved to be the biggest issue, as both of them saw success in their solo endeavors, although obviously Michael's was substantially greater. Michael in particular felt the Victory album and era was an obligation more than anything and found it difficult to work with the group again after having so much creative freedom and success on his own with Off the Wall and Thriller. Despite the friction, Victory was still a decent success, peaking at number 4 on the Billboard 200. The album's most successful single was State of Shock, which featured Michael performing a duet with the frontman of the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger. The song was originally intended to be a duet between Michael and Queen frontman Freddie Mercury. However, it was unable to be completed and Mick Jagger ended up taking his place. Michael and Freddie would form a brief friendship in the early 80s, recording at least 2 songs together. However, none of their work was officially released. The Jacksons would ultimately set aside their differences and go on the Victory Tour, which kicked off in Kansas City, Missouri, just 4 days after the album was released. Despite being billed as a Jacksons tour, many regarded it as more or less the Thriller Tour. Although the Thriller era had mostly reached its close, the mania surrounding Michael Jackson was still very much in effect, and he was undoubtedly the main draw of the show. The set list consisted mostly of songs from Off the Wall and Thriller. Not a single song from Victory, the album that the tour was supporting, mind you, was performed. Michael reportedly refused to rehearse or perform any of the songs from Victory and actually outright refused to go on the tour altogether. It took his mother, Catherine, to persuade him before he finally agreed. According to Marlon, Michael had only reluctantly joined his brothers because they allegedly needed the money, while Michael himself did not. On the tour, tensions between Michael and his brothers increased so much that at the final concert, he announced that it would be the last time that they would perform together, something that none of his brothers were expecting. Michael's impromptu announcement effectively ruined plans for a European and Australian leg of the tour in the spring and summer of 1985. All in all, the animosity between Michael and his brothers had a deep and lasting effect on the Jacksons as a family, with Michael making a deliberate effort to distance himself from his family altogether. The Jacksons made one more album in 1989, but Michael only participated in one song on it, and aside from his 30th anniversary concert in 2001, the Jacksons never toured or performed together again during Michael's lifetime. The Victory album and era essentially served as the final curtain call for one of the greatest bands to ever exist. It was a bittersweet occasion. After the completion of the Victory era, Michael set his sights completely on furthering his own solo career, and he no longer needed to shoulder the obligation he once had to his family.
For me, I think it is a great opportunity, a wonderful chance to participate and contribute something to a wonderful cause, and I'm honored just to be asked to be a part of it.
I want to make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We'll say messed up. I messed up. Hey.
Maybe it really is that we have to be kind of the voice for the people through our song to really help those people that have lost their perspective on what life is about.
So let's make a better day for you and me.
There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we'll make a better day, just you and me. Sending your love so they'll know that someone cares, and their lives will be strong and free. That's God shown us by turning stones to bread, and we all in a helping hand. Ooh.
In 1985, Michael would team up with Lionel Richie to write the charity single We Are the World, which raised money for the poor in the United States and Africa. The song earned $63 million and is the 8th best-selling single of all time, with 20 million physical copies sold. It won 4 Grammy Awards in 1985, including Song of the Year. The song features contributions from some of the biggest stars at the time, including Ray Charles, Diana Ross, Dionne Warwick, Cyndi Lauper, Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Wonder, and Tina Turner, just to name a few. Prince controversially opted not to be a part of the song, the reason for which could have been a multitude of factors, the most commonly tossed around reason being that he simply did not want to record with other acts. Lionel Richie later called Prince personally, and the latter offered to provide a guitar solo if he was able to record it in a separate room. Lionel declined the offer. The entire song was recorded and completed in one night, with many of the artists coming directly to the studio from the American Music Awards, which were also held that night. Recording began roughly at 10:30 p.m., and the final version of the song was completed at 8 a.m. the next day. In 1986, Michael would team up with Walt Disney Studios and the creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, for the 3D short film Captain EO. Michael starred in the film as the titular character who travels through the galaxy on his spaceship with his ragtag crew. The innovative effects of the 17-minute-long film made it one of the most expensive films of its time. Captain EO ran from 1986 to the early 1990s at Disneyland in California, Disney World's Epcot in Orlando, Tokyo Disneyland, and Euro Disneyland. Michael recorded 2 new songs for the film, We Are Here to Change the World and Another Part of Me. Aside from his side endeavors like We Are the World and Captain EO, Michael spent much of 1985 and 1986 out of the public eye. In the midst of all of his different side projects and the increased tabloid attention, Michael still continued to work diligently on his next album, one that the world was eagerly awaiting.
How long did it take to come up with, I guess you almost wrote 8 songs or 7 songs on it? How long did it take to come up with that creative process?
I don't remember. I totally don't remember. I don't even count the hours or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Every song is different. Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it happens slowly. No one can quite say what the creative process is because I have nothing to do with it almost, because it's created in space. It's God's work, not mine.
You know, talking about that, God gives us a lot of gifts a lot of times, and you've been really blessed with a tremendous amount of gifts. And yet it seems as though a lot has been required of you. Do you sometimes regret being so utterly famous?
No, sometime. Only sometime. Sometimes I want to sneak into places and not have any hoopla or, and it doesn't work all the time because people start and they crowd around, and which is sweet. I mean, I shouldn't complain, but
no, but you have a right to complain because everybody has a right to go out there and to just be alone. But it seems like that right isn't really given to you.
It was part of the work, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It would take 5 entire years for Michael to release his highly anticipated follow-up to Thriller. He once again collaborated with Quincy Jones as he did for his last 2 albums, but this would be their last time working together. Recording for the album began as early as November 1983, while Michael was also working on the Victory album with his brothers. The recording process was interrupted several times as he pursued his side projects during this period. Despite these interruptions, he continued writing and recording, amassing 60 songs altogether and recording 30 of them for the album. Michael envisioned his next album as a 3-disc set, but Quincy Jones persuaded him to cut it down to a 10-track album. Michael also adopted an edgier image and sound, departing from his signature groove-based style and falsetto. He wanted a fiercer sound compared to his previous albums, something totally different from what the world would expect from Michael Jackson at the time. Michael's new look could only be described as that of a bad boy rock star. Gone were the sequins and sparkles that defined Off the Wall and Thriller. This new era ushered in belts and buckles and leather from head to toe. One of the main goals of this new era was to show that Michael Jackson was indeed still cool. Of course, no one was questioning the cool factor of Michael Jackson in the mid-1980s, but it's important to remember that Michael Jackson was a very safe and family-friendly kind of artist when compared to his peers, such as Prince and Madonna, and even his own sister at times. He notoriously didn't curse in his music, nor did he talk about sex explicitly. He didn't go out and party. You hardly ever saw him drinking or smoking. And that's not to say he never did any of those things, but Michael Jackson had a very pristine image in the 1980s. In the latter half of the decade, Michael's next album and era would aim to find a marriage between adopting a harder image for Michael while not compromising his overall good guy persona. The title of this next album was concise and conveyed exactly what this era was all about. It was simply titled Bad. Bad is heavier and more aggressive than Thriller, with Michael moving away from the heavy groove sound and high-pitched vocals of his prior records. The remnants of disco that were present on Thriller were replaced with far more in-your-face production, accompanied by Michael, whose vocals have become far more aggressive by this point. If you compare Michael's vocals on Off the Wall to that of Thriller and then Bad, there's a clear transition from a softer, soulful falsetto in his Off the Wall era singing to the gradual addition of weight and aggression on Thriller to a full-out peak at Bad. Just comparing the opening tracks of the 3 albums, you have Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, which is all falsetto and soul. Wanna Be Starting Something from Thriller has Michael showcasing a level of aggression in his tone that wasn't anywhere present on Off the Wall, especially at the climax of the song. And then we get to the title track of Bad, which from the get-go has Michael singing in a lower, intimidating tone, with him almost yelling on the song's chorus. Bad establishes the new Michael Jackson from the jump. Bad also took Michael deeper into genres previously explored by him, while also pushing him further musically. As a whole, the album feels bolder than Thriller, like a rambunctious younger sibling album. Incorporating pop, rock, hard rock, funk, R&B, dance, and soul, Bad is a far louder and fiercer album than its 2 predecessors, boasting more robust and distinct production, which is saying a lot considering Thriller was already a very rich-sounding album. A key component of Bad's more distinct sound was the incorporation of the latest musical recording technology of the time, particularly digital synthesizers, which were utilized heavily in the 80s. As with all of Michael's albums, Bad rides the line between diversity of sounds and musical cohesion. There's a variety of different sounds and vibes on this album, ranging from the frantic production of songs like Speed Demon and Smooth Criminal to far more somber and soulful moments shown on I Just Can't Stop Loving You or Liberian Girl. The same formula used to craft Thriller was present for Bad as well, albeit with a more forward-thinking creative mind from Michael. In every aspect, as mentioned before, Michael's main goal with Bad was to surpass Thriller, and its singles run would prove to be vital to the album's success. The first taste of Michael's new era would come on July 20th, 1987, with the release of the soulful ballad I Just Can't Stop Loving You. One of Michael's more underrated singles, the song is a duet between Michael and singer-songwriter Saida Garrett. The song expresses the strong attachment and infatuation that often accompanies falling in love. During the song's creation, Michael actually had two other singers whom he wanted to duet with originally. The first was Barbra Streisand, however, she declined the offer because she had concerns about their 16-year age difference and thought the song's lyrics would be unbelievable for her and Michael to sing together. Michael's next choice for the song was a then relatively new Whitney Houston. At the time, Whitney was in the midst of pushing her sophomore album, simply titled Whitney. Her label, Arista Records, ultimately prevented the duet from happening due to the fear that it would overshadow Whitney's new album at the time. After two of his offers fell through, Michael was eventually introduced to Saida Garrett through Quincy Jones, who suggested her to do the duet. Saida also notably co-wrote Man in the Mirror on the Bad album as well. She reportedly wasn't informed she'd be singing the duet until the day of the recording session. I Just Can't Stop Loving You topped the Billboard Hot 100 R&B singles and adult contemporary charts, becoming the first of 5 consecutive #1 singles from Bad. Despite its success, the song was released without a music video. The original album version featured Michael delivering a spoken intro, recorded while he was laying in bed. I Just Can't Stop Loving You was a rather subdued introduction to the Bad era, and like The Girl Is Mine from Thriller, it would ultimately be dwarfed by the success of the singles that followed.
How do you feel about the song Bad? We talked earlier, and I told you that I like the song Bad because it's really all about you. You are the baddest when it comes to the record industry.
Well, it is quite different from anything I've ever recorded or I've ever written. It's a bold statement to say, but I mean it in all goodwill, so don't take it too seriously.
It's a good modesty, of course.
Yeah, I'm saying it's like a way of saying you're cool, you're all right, you're tough. I'm not saying I'm like criminally bad. Of course, that's how people would take it. It's a bold statement to make.
The title track was released as a second single from Bad on September 7th, 1987. Written and composed by Michael and co-produced by Quincy Jones, the song was inspired by a real-life story Michael read about a young man who attempted to escape poverty by attending a private school, only to be tragically killed when he returned home. The 18-minute-long short film for the song is a reflection of that, also being heavily inspired by West Side Story as well. Directed by Martin Scorsese and co-starring a young Wesley Snipes, the video has since been praised as one of the greatest music videos of all time, with Michael's outfit becoming a significant influence on fashion. While the previous single was a soft launch for the Bad era in all regards, the title track firmly cemented Michael's new image and style. Bad quickly climbed the charts, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming his 8th #1 hit. The song also reached #1 in Ireland, Norway, Spain, and the Netherlands, and secured top 10 spots in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and several European countries. Interestingly, Michael originally planned Bad as a duet with Prince, approaching him for the second time in 2 years about a possible collaboration between the two juggernauts of pop music. Prince, in typical Prince fashion, declined, citing the first line of the song, "Your Butt Is Mine," as a deal breaker for him. Allegedly, the role in the music video played by Wesley Snipes would have been the part that Prince played. Yes, you heard it right. Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Prince could have all been on the same album, and Michael tried to make it happen, but record label politics and Prince just being Prince stopped that from happening. Prince later offered his own song, "Wouldn't You Love to Love Me," to Michael, but Michael ultimately rejected it. Overall, Bad the Song was a bold and uncharacteristically brash statement from the shy and soft-spoken Peter Pan of pop music. But this new bold side of Michael Jackson was only getting started. The Way You Make Me Feel was released as the third single from Bad on November 9th, 1987. It became the album's third consecutive single to reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song and its music video were crafted to present another side of Michael's persona, complementing the lover boy image from I Just Can't Stop Loving You and the streetwise character from Bad. This time he was portrayed as a flirtatious and confident man, adding depth to his public image. The music video for The Way You Make Me Feel received a nomination for Best Choreography at the 1988 MTV Video Music Awards, alongside the Bad video as well. However, both videos lost to his sister Janet's video for The Pleasure Principle. The Way You Make Me Feel also became iconic for his associated outfit, a blue shirt and white belt combo, much like the sequin sequin jacket for Billie Jean or the red jackets for Beat It and Thriller. Michael wore this outfit in nearly every live performance of The Way You Make Me Feel, cementing it as a signature look in his repertoire. The gospel-influenced anthem Man in the Mirror was released as the fourth single from Bad in January of 1988. The song was one of only 2 songs from the album that Michael didn't write himself. After the first 3 singles showcased Michael's lover boy, bad boy, and ladies man personas respectively, Man in the Mirror shows a far gentler and reflective side of Michael. One of Michael's most critically acclaimed songs, Man in the Mirror was the 4th consecutive #1 hit from Bad and was nominated for Record of the Year at the 31st Grammy Awards in 1989.
One thing that I find is, like what you said, it took so long to come up with all the different songs on the album, and every song is different. You have calypso influences, you have reggae influences, you have the new cool sound with one, you have heavy metal with Dirty Diana.
I love Dirty Diana.
That's
one of my favorites.
Why?
Because it's a life story of a groupie. I hate to say the word groupie, but that's what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I've experienced, and a lot of people who grow up on the road, like me. I mean, I don't remember not performing. Mm-hmm. And
do you feel as though you missed out on something by not remembering, not performing?
Of course, but I've gained a lot too. Mm-hmm. A lot of people never get out of their hometown and get to see other wonderful places. A lot of kids read about things that I get to see in person all over the world, in different places. So I'm so happy about that. I mean, you never can have everything.
The 5th single from Bad was the hard rock-driven Dirty Diana, released on April 18th, 1988. Following Beat It from Thriller, Dirty Diana continued the trend of Michael including at least one rock song on all of his albums. Thematically, Dirty Diana is a younger sibling song to Billie Jean, as both songs discuss an obsessive groupie. Although if the song's lyrics are anything to go by, Diana was far more chaotic than Billie Jean ever was. Dirty Diana overall tackles the issue of an obsessed fan in a far more aggressive, palpable way than Billie Jean, fitting the overall edge of the Bad album. Dirty Diana became Michael's 5th consecutive #1 hit, setting a record for the most #1s from one album, something that wouldn't be matched until 2011 with Katy Perry's Teenage Dream. There was heavy speculation about just who Diana really is or who she was based on. At the time of its release, many pointed to Michael's close friend and mentor Diana Ross, while many later on believed it was about Diana, Princess of Wales. Michael denied both of these theories, insisting that, like Billie Jean, Dirty Diana is simply an amalgamation of different groupies and obsessed fans. Speaking of Princess Diana, on his visit to Wembley during his Bad World Tour in 1988, Michael took this song out of the set list out of respect for Princess Diana, who was in attendance that night. It was previously thought that the song was not performed, but it was in fact added back into the set list shortly after Michael heard that it was one of her favorite songs. Another Part of Me followed as the 6th single from Bad on July 11th, 1988. The song was originally recorded and featured in Captain EO 2 years prior. Michael reworked the song and included it on the final track list for Bad. Michael had actually intended to put the song Streetwalker on the album, but Quincy wanted Another Part of Me. While it was still a success worldwide, Another Part of Me broke Michael's #1 single streak, just barely missing the top 10 and peaking at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. And random trivia, Another Part of Me is what Chris Tucker dances to in the opening scene of Rush Hour.
You're going more like, it's gotta be more like you're feeling something, yeah.
Listen to this. Tell them.
Right now, the NRYOKs are too big. It should be more internal. See, you got more movement. It should be more like something's going on inside you. I mean, that's why when we build it to a mountain and we bring it back down, it's got to have that emotion.
That's what they're saying. They said that they're coming from... On this lens, it's like every inch is like a foot, you know? So just take it up and... All right, quiet. Rehearsing.
My footsteps broke the silence of the pre-dawn hours as I drifted down Bleecker Street, past shop windows, barred against the perils of the night. Up ahead, a neon sign emerged from the fog. The letters glowed red hot, in that way I knew so well, branding a message into my mind, a single word, hotel. Do, 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 do.
Smooth Criminal, one of Michael's most iconic tracks, was released on November 14, 1988 as the seventh single from Bad. It was also the final single pushed from the album in the United States. The song tells the story of a woman who had been attacked in her apartment by a quote-unquote smooth criminal. The idea for the song dates all the way back to 1984, and it was originally envisioned to be a Western musical, with Michael being a gunslinger. When he became dissatisfied with the original concept, he decided to make it a gangster scene instead. From there, he wrote basic lyrics to go along with the idea he had for the musical hook. An earlier version of what would become Smooth Criminal was Al Capone, a song that was later released on the 25th anniversary reissue of Bad. Smooth Criminal peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it the 6th top 10 single from Bad. It also topped the charts in several countries, including Belgium, Iceland, the Netherlands, and Spain. Smooth Criminal has been hailed as one of Michael's best songs. Its blend of R&B groove and rock edge gives it a truly unique sound that only Michael Jackson could pull off. The song served as a key turning point in Michael's shift towards darker, harder-edged material. The music video for Smooth Criminal, which debuted on MTV on October 13, 1988, was also a central piece of Michael's 1988 film, Moonwalker. Set in the 1930s, the video pays homage to Fred Astaire, with Michael donning a white suit and fedora, which became synonymous with the song. The video is also famous for the anti-gravity lean, where Michael and his dancers tilt forward at a seemingly impossible 45-degree angle. This illusion was initially achieved with cables and harnesses in the video, but Michael and his team later patented special shoes that allowed him to perform the lean live on stage. Even with the shoes, the lean still requires a good bit of athletic core strength to pull off. Overall, Smooth Criminal is a cornerstone track of the Bad album and remains a standout in Michael's discography and 80s pop music. In retrospect, the song's iconic video and unique sound rival that of other signature songs from Michael, such as Billie Jean and Beat It.
And
In the dark.
And the lyrics go, it goes, people really don't understand me.
Yeah, I say a lot of people misunderstand me. That's because they don't know me. I guess that's true. People believe a lot of crazy stories they read. And some is true, some is not. And
does it hurt when you see those crazy stories?
Sometimes, but it's part of the work, you know.
You ever want to lash out in any type of way and say, hey, that's not true?
Yeah, a lot of times. But why bring more attention to a thing, you know?
The onset of the Bad era saw a rapid increase in negative rumors about Michael being published in the tabloids. It was only to be expected as his popularity exploded after Thriller, but he became the target of particularly merciless treatment from paparazzi and news outlets. Michael would finally provide a response with the song Leave Me Alone, which was released as the 8th single from Bad outside of North America on February 12, 1989. If the title track didn't have enough edge, then Leave Me Alone packs the punch that was lacking on the song Bad. It's one of the few songs where Michael actively fought back against the media and his detractors, a theme that will become commonplace on his following albums. The song acted as an unofficial bonus track on the Bad album, as it was originally only available on the CD version of the album and not cassette or vinyl. The music video for Leave Me Alone received a Grammy in 1990 for Best Music Video. Michael has never performed the song live. The gorgeous Liberian Girl completed the singles run of Bad, being released in Europe, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia as the 9th and final single. The song was written as early as 1983 and was among those considered for the Jacksons' Victory album, but it was reworked and rewritten for Bad. Despite the song's relative success, it was yet another song that Michael never performed live.
He comes from a place beyond the stars to take them to a world beyond their dreams. From his soul comes the music. From his heart comes the beat. Now, from the imagination of Michael Jackson comes a movie like no other.
Released as a sort of visual companion to Bad, 1988's Moonwalker is best described as an experimental anthology musical film. Unlike traditional films with a continuous storyline, Moonwalker is a collection of short films and extended music videos from the Bad album. The film explores themes of fandom and innocence, reflecting Michael's impact on popular culture. The various segments of Moonwalker are loosely connected by an overarching narrative that represents different stages of Michael's career at the time. The film reflects his perception of how his fans idolized him, causing them to ignore the deeper messages in his music. While Moonwalker was released theatrically in Europe and South America, Warner Brothers canceled plans for a U.S. theatrical release in 1988, opting instead for a straight-to-VHS release. The film became a major success in this format, topping Billboard's video chart for 22 weeks and remaining #1 on the top video cassette sales charts for 14 weeks. The Moonwalker film was also adapted into several different video games. Michael was a big fan of current technology, and the video game industry was one that was experiencing a reinvigorated appeal around the late 80s. Michael approached Japanese game developer Sega about creating a video game based on him, and the company agreed. Officially titled Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, one version was released in arcades while the other was released for the Sega Master System and Sega Genesis. Several home computer versions were published as well. Each game used the Smooth Criminal section of Moonwalker as the basis for the plot, while also including scaled-down synthesized versions of Michael's songs. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker was an unexpected success for both Michael and Sega, and was the beginning of an unlikely, albeit unofficial, partnership between the King of Pop and the Japanese video game developer. Sega was the developer of at least 6 of the 9 video games that Michael was involved with over the course of his career, most notably his involvement with the 1994 game Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Come on! Bang. Who's bang? Bang. Who's bang? Bang. Who's bang? Come on! Bang. Who's bang? Bang. Come on! Who's bang? Bang. Who's bang? Bang. Who's bang?
The Bad World Tour was Michael's first solo concert tour. Spanning 123 shows, the tour began on September 12, 1987 in Japan and concluded on January 27, 1989 in the United States. It was Michael's first live performances since the Victory Tour. The tour grossed $125 million, making it the second highest grossing tour of the 1980s, only behind Pink Floyd's Momentary Lapse of Reason tour. It also set 2 Guinness World Records for the largest grossing tour in history and the tour with the largest attended audience. At the end of the Bad Tour, Jackson publicly stated that this would be his final tour as he planned to transition into filmmaking, and he had made it known just how much he hated touring. However, he later returned to the stage with the Dangerous World Tour in 1992 and 1993, and the History World Tour in 1996 and 1997. Notably, the Bad Tour was the last time Michael ever toured in the United States, aside from 2 shows that he held in Hawaii in 1997. The very first leg of the tour was actually copy and pasted from the set list of the Victory Tour. The only new songs that Michael performed initially were I Just Can't Stop Loving You and Bad. The set list was later revamped and more songs from the Bad album were added.
Music Award of Achievement. The inscription on this reads, because this album Bad is the first ever to generate 5 #1 singles, because it has been number 1 bestseller in record-breaking 25 countries around the world, and because it's been the largest international seller in each of the last 2 years, the American Music Award of Achievement is presented to Michael Jackson, January 30th, 1989.
Thank you very much, Eddie Murphy. First, I'd like to thank... could you lift that up, please? I can't. Eddie, I need your help.
It ain't working. Okay. Go like bend down.
First, I'd like to thank...
He said, Eddie, pull it up like I was working for him or something. And I started to do it too. I was like, yes, Mike. Wait, what am I doing?
First, I'd like to thank God who makes all things possible. I'd like to thank my mother and father, Catherine and Joseph Jackson. I'd like to thank Barry Gordy, who gave me my first professional start in show business. And the Epic family, Walter Yetnikoff, Larry Stesso, Glenn Brunman, Frank DeLeo, Quincy Jones, and Bruce Swedin. I love you. And the public, thank you.
Michael Jackson's Bad was released on August 31st, 1987, amidst unprecedented anticipation. The pressure was immense, with some critics suggesting that anything less than 10 million copies sold could be seen as a failure for Michael compared to the once-in-a-lifetime success of Thriller. Bad still shattered expectations, becoming the fastest-selling album of all time, with over 7 million copies sold worldwide in just its first week. Within a year, Bad had solidified its status as a global blockbuster. It was the best-selling album worldwide in both 1987 and 1988, with 17 million copies sold in the latter year alone. By 1989, the album's sales had reached 20 million, making Michael Jackson the top-selling artist worldwide in 1988. By 1991, Bad had sold 25 million copies globally, becoming the second best-selling album of all time at the time, only being beaten by Michael's own Thriller. In the United States, Bad debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Albums chart, selling over 2.25 million copies in its first week, making it the fastest-selling album in U.S. history at the time. Despite impressive numbers all around, some media outlets labeled the album as a disappointment for not matching the monumental success of Thriller. Internationally, Bad reached number 1 in 25 countries, including major markets like the UK, Japan, and Canada. It was the best-selling album of 1987 in the United Kingdom. Globally, Bad has sold over 45 million copies, making it one of the best-selling albums of all time. Bad helped to define the sound of late 80s pop. The album set new standards for innovation in music videos, arguably pushing the envelope even further than Michael did with Thriller, with iconic visuals for Bad, Smooth Criminal, The Way You Make Me Feel, and Leave Me Alone. In retrospect, when held up against his contemporaries' releases at the time, like Prince's Sign of the Times or Whitney Houston's self-titled sophomore album, both of which were released the same year as Bad, you find that Bad still sounds the freshest out of the three. No two songs on this album sound alike, and the album itself has an incredibly distinct sound that overall makes it incomparable to anything at the time. There isn't a song on this planet that sounds anything like Smooth Criminal, and that's what sets Michael Jackson apart from everyone else. While Bad didn't shake the world with the same magnitude that Thriller did, it is still objectively one of the most important pop albums of the 1980s and one of the most successful albums in history. Not to mention being a key release in the discography of one of the greatest entertainers to have ever lived. So did Michael top Thriller? Well, strictly by the numbers, no he didn't. But the best-selling album of all time is a hefty record to beat. And if anything, Michael's mission to top his magnum opus just shows that he was truly his only competition at this point. Bad proved that Michael Jackson's creative genius was far from a one-time phenomenon. It may not have been the Thriller ender that he wanted it to be, but nonetheless, it is still one of the greatest albums ever crafted and one of the many crown jewels from the legend that is Michael Jackson.
Appreciate the time. Can you
hold on 1 second.
Okay.